Welcome to another Online Personals Watch CEO interview. Today we're joined by Michael Sullivan, who is the CEO of Sites Instantly, which is a white label provider. So, Michael, welcome to the interview.
Hi, thanks, Mark. It's good to speak to you.
So we've not interviewed you before. I'd like to capture your founding story, first of all. How was the company started?
Well, the company was started, I believe, in 2002. It wasn't by me. It was by a previous colleague of mine, Tobias Heaton Armstrong. So as well as having a very long name, he was quite inventive. He saw a gap in the market for white label software, and he went and he recruited, which is still our existing development team, actually based out in Russia. And he grew the company basically from nothing and no technology to quite a considerable platform.
And what's your expertise and background, Michael? What did you used to do?
Well, primarily technical. I'm a computer engineer by trade, but I've always ended up in sales environments with people. So I'm roughly a mixture of commercial and technical, which definitely helps when you're speaking to people about online dating, because it is fundamentally a very technical discipline. But you need to be quite cognizant of all the things that go into making a good commercial deal for people.
Gotcha. And had you had some success with other site development in the past?
Yes, but it was in much less exciting industry, so telecoms and the kind of large database projects, and things like, for example, you'd end up speaking to not the Ministry of Defense, but the Department of Defense of the US, and very boring people with very important titles. So it's much more exciting to be onto something that you can kind of understand more intuitively rather than these big, horrendous projects that never seem to go anywhere.
You mentioned Russia. Is that where your team are based?
Yeah, they're in. It's not in Moscow. There's another city called Kazan, which is a little bit smaller, probably about 2 million people. And the team was based there from the outset. So we've been very lucky to grow in a very good team that have stayed together in quite tight-knit unit. So when we need to develop anything, they understand the code and the software and the requirements in the industry very, very well.
I think one of the upsides that Cupid enjoys for having a large part of its workforce based in the Ukraine is their low cost base. And of course, I'm glad to hear you're not in Moscow. I know what the cost base must be like there. It's a very expensive city. What do people typically earn in that part of Russia?
Well, I think we find that certainly I was recently in Moscow at the IDA conference, and as you'll know, it certainly wasn't cheap. It was definitely more expensive than London, but there I think probably our developer cost is probably 60% of what you might pay in the UK. I mean, it's not completely cheap as chips, as some people would say, but I think there's a trade-off between the quality that you get, and certainly I know a lot of people have outsourced and looked for labor in other markets and have been quite disappointed with the results. But I've actually found that the Russian mentality is very good for understanding technical tasks, and if you can get the right guys with a little bit of imagination, you can do some pretty good things with them.
How many people do you have there?
We've got about 7, so it's an almost ideal size team for software development. If it gets any bigger, then you run into issues that nobody knows what someone else is doing, and then we tend to get into trouble at larger sizes. So, for example, with Cupid, I believe it's something like 100 or 200 developers in Ukraine. So that's a real management challenge. So thankfully, our code base and our features and everything is just compact enough that we don't need any more than that.
So let's get into Sites Instantly a bit more. What would you say would be the key, the one thing that you're most unique over other competitors? Because there's actually about a dozen white labelers. We did a research project recently and realized that there's well over a dozen white label providers at this stage. Of course, the big ones are the likes of White Label Dating, our client, Cupid.com, and Dating Factory, and then there's Dating Central out of Gibraltar. What sets Sites Instantly apart?
Well, I think there's 2 things. That when people look at white labeling dating products, it's usually a question of, well, what are the features that they have? What's the level of effort of developing and actually launching a site? Even though it is white labeled, there's varying degrees of effort that go into it. And then how suitable is that feature set for your actual market? So I think for Sites Instantly, we've spent a lot of time on ease of use. Where literally you can create an account, you can create your site within about 2 minutes, probably 3 or 4 minutes if you don't have your bank details to hand, because that's really where most of the effort is. And we try and make it very, very easy for people to roll out the sites. People who are not technical, we take away all of the pain of that. But we also find that our features work particularly well in the kind of the casual and the niche markets, because we have unique features that build more of a sense of a community that doesn't necessarily exist in the general dating market, which tends to be quite a solitary activity. But we've built in a lot of features. So for if you want to build a very niche site, we're very good at doing providing out of the box or as part of the solution the features that people want for that. And then the other good thing is, because we are a small, tight team, with our top webmasters, we're able to do things that some of the bigger players aren't able to, purely by nature of once the super tanker gets going, it's very hard to do customer bespoke features for somebody if needs be.
And the magic question: what do you pay out?
50%. So I think if you spoke to your friend Ross at White Label, he would say it's 50%, and don't worry about whether it's 75 or 40%. It's all about the conversion that you get on the users. And I'd have to agree with him. He's absolutely right. So 50%, it's fair for everybody. Nobody's motivated more or less that way for your success.
And of course, the real number is the conversion number, and that can only be found by testing.
Yes.
So what markets do you convert in? What markets are you beyond critical mass in?
I would definitely say that the UK is far and away our biggest market. It's probably in excess of 70% of our paying members are from the UK. Then it's continental Europe after that, and beyond that, and then it's USA for maybe about 5-10%. But definitely the UK is miles ahead as number one.
And can you disclose your revenues? Are you able to do?
Yeah. Well, it's all public information anyway. But it's of the order of about £70,000 per month in total revenues, and obviously that's split between our white label partners.
Now, of course, one of the problems all the white labelers have to deal with is every dating site is dealing with scammers. How do you defend against scammers?
Well, I think they're a particular problem. I think the first hurdle, if somebody's looking at a white label product, is to make sure there's no scammers built into the system. And I'm quite proud to say that we're definitely whiter than white in that regard, in that we're all about building a quality product that's not interested in fake profiles, fake messaging, and that type of those shenanigans. But beyond that, for scammers, we're constantly monitoring the number of messages sent out by people. And obviously we don't want to limit anyone's features as a paying member, but there's certain behavioral profiles that appear with scammers. So they start sending a large number of messages, and they're all very, very similar. And each message that somebody reads has a small little report button, so they can discreetly report a message as suspect. So that flags up quite quickly when somebody gets up and running. So maybe somebody will be on, but they'll go for maybe a day, and then we'll catch them, and we boot them out, and then we just ban their IPs and through another bunch of other mechanisms to make sure that they can't log on again easily and create another profile and keep going.
So you're pushing $1 million a year, £1 million a year, I should say, in revenues. What's your goals for 2012, 2013? Where will you be in 2013?
Well, obviously significantly more than that is always the goal. I think we've got a bunch of initiatives to try and grow revenue. We're looking at, obviously the UK is a very lucrative market for us, so we want to grow there. But we have other members on the management team. One who's based in Shanghai, who's looking at the Chinese market, and we're still waiting on reports back yet on just how to crack that market. But I think there are some emerging markets where there are existing issues on how to monetize traffic in those environments. But I think in addition to the UK, I think if we diversify and we can solve some of those problems, I think that's where we're looking for additional revenue.
Great. Michael O'Sullivan, you're the CEO of Sites Instantly. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mark.